Morning, how you doing? Today's video, I want to sort of dig a little bit into um, addiction, or what I think of as addiction from the perspective of look, I'm trying to help people who are, from my perspective, are in the habit of drinking alcohol. They are, um, when I look at my own self, my own past life of drinking alcohol, I was in control mostly of everything that I did. My philosophy is that when you're trying to stop drinking alcohol, you have to make a binary decision, right? It's either put the alcohol into your mouth or not. Now, where addiction and alcoholism comes into it, there is a spectrum. I'll show you a spectrum in a minute. And I also want to highlight just a passage from a book that I read. And this sort of, for me, gives me a lot more of an idea about where addiction is and who is addicted. And for AA and for those types of organizations, why I think AA can be a solution, but only for a certain amount of people, right? So first of all, let's go into the passage. So I'm going to show you the passage first. This is the passage, and I'll show you the book at the end of it once we've broken it down a little bit. Addiction is a pathological relationship. It uses persons, objects, or even events for purposes that they cannot possibly fulfill. The addiction becomes the all-absorbing focus, the provider of ultimate meaning, and the sole reason for being of an addict. Everything he or she does revolves increasingly around the object of desire. In that way, the addiction becomes a god to which the addict is completely subjected. Right? So let's just break this down sentence by sentence. Addiction is a pathological relationship. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily use the term pathological. I think destructive will probably be a better word to use there. Because pathology, you're getting into disease and you're getting into the medicalization of this. And I understand that there is, once you get to this level, and I'll show you a little bit in a minute about what I'm talking about here. Once you get up to a certain level in this, your addiction definitely does become pathological, because you do need to get medical treatment in order to successfully wean yourself away from alcohol. But that's for essentially people who are way up the scale, right? And as far as the relationship is concerned, I think there is a relationship between the alcohol and the person. I think it tends to be towards a drug. So, I mean, with this instance, you can say that the relationship is between the alcohol and the person, that the person obviously has a poisonous relationship. You often hear people talking about coming away from alcohol and this process of getting rid of alcohol from your life as being as bad as getting away from a horrible relationship. That you're, it comes along with a lot of the downers with that, right? So I think that's probably a good sentence. It uses persons. Now, I'm not really sure what this means, this sentence. It uses persons, objects, or even events for purposes that they cannot possibly fulfill. Now, I agree with the purposes. We'll talk about that in a second. I'm presuming that it means that the addiction itself uses the persons that are addicted, or it uses objects outside or events or whatever it is from that perspective, to try and get to ends, maybe, that it cannot possibly get to, right? Now, I from here, I don't like the use of the word "it" as if it is a separate thing. It is a part of you. It is a part of whatever you're going through. It's a part of that pathology once you get into the latter stages of this. So I don't like the that it can use anything, that like it's the same thing as the alcohol here, that the alcohol cannot do anything. It's the person that has to do this. So once the person is within, once the person is addicted um, to a behavior, I mean, I think the alcohol is really a means to an end. It's a tool to get to the job, to get to that, to try and get to that object or to the event or to the person. To get the person into a certain way of thinking or feeling or a level of emotion, mood, whatever it is that you're trying to get to with the alcohol. The alcohol is just a means to an end. And the purpose is the thing that we do. It's the thing that distinguishes all living things from non-living things, from inanimate things. So your can of beer, your bottle of wine is an inanimate thing. It doesn't have a purpose. It has the purpose of the person who has made it to sell you and to get you to drink it and then get you to drink more, so on and so forth. But there is ultimately no purpose to the addiction. The addiction is just a state of being. It's a state that you are in at that stage because of where you've come from. I'll go to this. Let's go and have a look at the. This is what I call the alcoholic addiction progression timeline, right? So this is basically just the timeline of before, and this is going into the future. And the way I look at this is the way most people start out when they're very young. When I started out drinking, I had my first drink when I was 12 years of age. I didn't really seriously start drinking until I could afford to do so, which was maybe 17, 18 years of age. So it was around the age of that guy. I'd already left school. I was trying to study, but I got caught up in this lifestyle of going out and working during the week, then going out basically on Friday and Saturday nights into a pub and getting drunk and recovering. I mean, when you're young, you recover a lot easier than when you get older. But as you're going through this process, you're gradually heading down this route. And the next slide down here, this is Ben Anderson, the character that Nicolas Cage played in Leaving Las Vegas. And this was a screenshot when this one was being took in the movie. He's clutching these two bottles of bourbon or whatever it is, spirits, and he's just shaking like this as he's walking through his room. And this to me is where the addiction takes you. Whether it takes you, in his case, it was whatever, weeks. I don't know whether he was drinking before. Obviously drinking before, but whether he was drinking that level. But some people take years to get to this stage, where they're gradually progressing through their alcohol until they get to a stage where, if we go back to this first slide, the addiction becomes all absorbing, which is the next slide that we're going to look at. So the addiction becomes the all-absorbing focus, the provider of ultimate meaning, and the sole reason for being for the addict. I mean, you can leave this part out, just the sole reason for being. This is something that I really, I found in my own journey through this, was that it was gradually taking over everything else. Not the alcohol, but the behavior. I think it gets to an addiction when it gets down to this stage, right? That's when it really gets to an addiction, when you're, it becomes all absorbing, right? The addiction becomes the all absorbing focus and the provider of ultimate meaning. So nothing else means anything anymore. I don't think, I haven't met anybody who was completely focused with alcohol, right? I haven't met anybody who alcohol was the ultimate meaning. They had a lot of other things, I suppose. This is what some people call the functional alcoholic. I don't really, I think, yeah, it's a weird situation, this, for me. So let's look at the 12 steps. The first one here is: we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Now, this was always the part that I disagree with, the admitted we were powerless. I never felt powerless over alcohol. And most of the people, everybody that I've ever spoken to has said the same thing, that they've never felt like they were powerless. It's believing that you're powerless over alcohol that is, for me, can lead you to this lifetime of thinking that you're an alcoholic, believing that something wrong with you, believing that you've got a disease, and that our lives have become unmanageable. I mean, for me, this is this end here. This is this part of the whole process here, heading down towards that. If we go back to the last slide here, the ultimate meaning is the alcohol. You don't see anything else, and you're getting up in the morning and you're drinking all day long, and that's all you want to do, is to stay in this state of complete drunkenness. It's the sole reason for being. Then that is addiction. That is that person here down at the end, or heading towards that person there. Everything he or she does revolves increasingly around the object of desire. And the object of desire, I don't think, is the alcohol, but it's that state. Going back to this again, it's increasingly, as you're moving down this road here, you're increasingly, your life is increasingly revolving around being in that state, staying in that state, hiding from the world, escaping from the world. And I think one of the reasons why that happens is because, the more, as you're moving from here to here, you're sacrificing so much of your life, sacrificing so much of your health, sacrificing so much of your career, your education, there's only so much time that you've got in the day. Everyone's got 24 hours. There's so much energy that you have in the day. And the more you move down this road, the more you're sacrificing time and energy towards doing that one thing. I mean, where was I when I stopped? Probably around here, maybe a bit further. Because my evenings were increasingly being taken up by alcohol. As it says here, increasingly, the object of my desire was that. And you stop thinking about anything else. You stop thinking about, everything. When you're going out for a good meal, it stops being the meal and it starts being the alcohol. The alcohol comes forwards. I mean, instead of being an aperitif or something which is a complementary to the meal, it becomes the main thing. Going out to a concert or going out anywhere, you don't want to go anywhere where you can't drink. Going on a vacation becomes all about the alcohol and how much alcohol you can stuff inside your mouth. So this, when we're talking about, let's see if I can get that a bit closer. It's getting a bit further away. This here, we admit we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives have become unmanageable. I really think that this is towards the end of this scale here. And we came to believe in a power that greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. This goes back to, there's a letter from Jung. Let's see if I can bring it up here. This is a letter I came across quite a while ago from Bill W. to Carl Jung. Right, so he says, clear once more of alcohol, I found myself terribly depressed. This seemed to be caused by my inability to gain the slightest faith. Edwin T. again visited me and repeated the simple Oxford group formulas. Soon after he left me, I became more depressed. In utter despair, I cried out, if there be a God, will he show himself? And there immediately came to me an illumination of enormous impact and dimension, something which I have tried to describe in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, and also AA Comes of Age, basic text that I'm sending to you. So he got released. My release from the alcohol obsession was immediate. So he had this vision, and his release from the alcohol obsession was immediate. And at once I knew I was a free man. And shortly following my experience, my friend Edwin came to the hospital and brought me a copy of William James's Variety of Religious Experiences. Right. So the book then gave him the realization that most conversion experiences, whatever their variety, do have a common denominator of ego collapse at depth, right? And you can go and read this letter. It's I can give you the title of the thing. It's Speaking of Jung, the Bill W. Carl Jung letters. That's where you can go and find that. Okay, so if we go back to this one again, I can imagine that if somebody is towards the end here and their whole life revolves around alcohol, right? That sometimes if everything you do, if you get up in the morning and you're drinking all day long and all you're doing is drinking and your whole life is revolving around, as this says here, everything you do revolves increasingly around the object of your desire, which is to get drunk and to stay in that state of oblivion, right? You're down this end of the scale. I think this then can make a lot of sense. You're powerless over everything, right? That your life has become unmanageable, and that the only thing that is going to really pull you out of this is to have some kind of a revelation, and when you look at this letter and you see the type of revelation that he had, it was a religious experience that he had. Now, how many people have a religious experience? I mean, how many people go to AA thinking that they're going to have a religious experience? But my point is that the majority of people, 99% of people, are not at that stage. They're not there. They're somewhere around here, somewhere around this area here. They're not down here. They're not down where Ben Anderson was, right? So this to me just didn't make any sense. And I understand when I read stories like that and I read descriptions like this. I'll finish off the sentence in a minute. When I read, I can now see why some people that this could be the only solution to them, right? I mean, he goes on to say in this letter now that where is this now? I'll see if I can find. So the individual faces an impossible dilemma. In my case, the dilemma had been created by my compulsive drinking, the deep feeling of hopelessness that had vastly. So he goes on about his alcoholic friend, and in the wake of my spiritual experience, there came a vision of a society of alcoholics, each identifying with and transmitting his experience to the next. Chain style. I mean, that's his words. Right? If each sufferer was to carry the news of the scientific hopelessness of alcoholism to each new prospect, he might be able to lay every newcomer wide open to a transforming spiritual experience. So that's what he was hoping for. But like I said, this is only going to apply to people who are down at this end of the scale. I don't get that where you're anywhere not down here, Let's finish off this. In that way, the addiction becomes a god to which the addict is completely subjected. Now, I can imagine getting to that stage down, the final stages of this, down Ben Anderson, Nick Cage stage, leaving Las Vegas, where I think God is probably the wrong word here. I think probably Antichrist or demon possession, like that somebody feels like they are possessed by something. To which the addict is completely subjected. Now, this, if we go back to the beginning of this slide, right? This is their definition of addiction, right? Now, I've come across this same definition of addiction over and over again, right? And I'll show you the source in a second. But it's, for me, this is where the addict feels completely subjected to this demigod or this internal demon. And I can understand it then when people are saying that this is demon alcohol, but they're mistaking the transportation device for the destination. I mean, it's the behavior, it's the addiction, it's the when you're talking about this timeline here. This is habit, all the way down here until you get into the final stages of fear. And then you start going into addiction where you're getting up in the morning, you're drinking, And I think if you subject yourself to the AA, I think what's happening is that you're putting yourself into this mindset of powerlessness and unmanageability and insanity. I mean, look at this word here, restore us to sanity, which means that you're insane. And that the only thing that can bring you back to this sanity is God or a power greater than. I mean, he was obviously talking about a religious experience, no matter how they push this now as not being a God. And when you look at this in the wake of my spiritual experience, his vision of a society of alcoholics, each identifying and transmitting the experience to the next chain style, is to grow this group of people. Now, if you're sticking to people who are towards the end of this, I think that can be a great thing, right? To people who cannot be helped in any other way, who are not listening to anything else, who are, maybe that's their only thing, is to try and find some kind of a spiritual awakening, something that's going to waken them up from the stupor and move them forwards, right? But, to go in there and to be assaulted with, to allow yourself to be pushed underneath this powerless ideology, unmanageability of your life, that you're insane, right? All of these things in those first two sentences, right? And you have to turn your will and your lives over to the care of God as we understand him. I mean, whatever that means, it's the only way. Like I said, our whole process is about trying to take as much control as you can for yourself, because you are the only one who can decide whether you go to AA or you go to any rehabilitation clinic. You are the only one in the long run who is going to decide whether you're going to put that stuff into your mouth or not, right? And after that, whether you're going to be the one who does everything that you can to change your life, to improve your life. I mean, that's what I'm all about. It's about progress, moving forwards with my life. All right, I'm going to show you this now. This is where this came from. This is where this, it was a book called Oh Blessed Night, Recovering from Addiction, Codependency and Attachment, based on the insights of St. John of the Cross and Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, written by these two people here. And the reason I didn't show you that at the beginning was because if I'd have showed you that first and then gone through this, it would have, I think it would have tainted your idea, because this is being a sort of semi-religious book. And the reason I read stuff like this is because I read a lot of academic stuff, right? I read a lot of academic papers and books. I mean, my bookshelf back here is full of stuff like that. And it's, a lot of this stuff is based around the DMV, the manual for psychiatrists use, and psychologists use, and trained psychologists. And if you don't use this stuff, then you can't practice. I remember trying to, when we were trying to advertise with Google, and they were saying, no, you can't advertise because you're not a psychologist. And so, well, what's a psychologist? I've gone through this experience, and no, you have to go through this process. And the process that they wanted me to go through was, it was just, I had to pay a fee. I think it was a couple of $1,000s per year to get into this group. And they had to basically say, well, we approve of the place that you've studied and the colleges that you studied in. So if they didn't approve, you didn't get your and they didn't give you your $2,000 back. So you had to pay the $2,000 up front, and regardless of whether they approved of you or not, that was a different story. Anyway, different thing. Most of the stuff that I read is based around, a lot of the stuff that I read is based around psychology, and from that perspective, so it's academic stuff. Very hard to read, but it's also very mainstream, and it's like a lot of things in life. If you'll find that a lot of people who go outside the mainstream won't get the funding, and that's the problem with a lot of the academic stuff, is you don't know where it's coming from. there is a lot of cherry picked data. There's easy to cherry pick data to prove your point in a certain way. You don't know whether the person who is the authors of the papers, you don't know whether they are what they're in it for, whether they're in it for the good of you. I think that might be a part of it. They want to improve life. But some of these people are also there because they want to be the first to discover a certain thing. They want to be the first. They want to go down in the history books for some reason or other. And there's also the funding. Who are these people funded by? You see so many scientific papers that are funded by the alcohol industry or funded by the quit alcohol industry, which is, for me, it's just as bad. They're raking in money. It's $1 billion industry, the quit alcohol industry, multi-billion-dollar industry, and the alcohol industry is going into 1.6, 1.7 trillion worldwide. So they've got an incentive to try and steer any scientific research towards one area. So anyway, the reason why I choose books like this to read is because if you're coming from a religious bent, a religious angle, you're more than likely looking to help somebody. And I find with these books that once you can extract yourself from the overall philosophy of the person, you can often find a lot of gems within the books themselves. I read books from people from AA, even though I don't agree with the AA philosophy, or I don't agree with certain parts of it, the 12 steps, the first 2 steps especially. But people that go to AA are looking for a solution, and sometimes the AA is the only solution that is there available. We're talking about not just stopping drinking alcohol, but keeping stopped. And if all you can see in life is to keep going to these meetings, to keep, and you're making friends there, you're seeing the same people over and over again, you're getting camaraderie there, then it's very difficult to break yourself off from that. And part of the process is to bring more people in, to spread the word. So it's no wonder that this philosophy has grown and grown and grown. Now, as I said, I'm all about personal development, for personal progress. And for me, saying that that you are helpless in anything, especially bring up this slide again, when you're down here, maybe that's the only time that you're helpless, where you are so screwed up because of the alcohol that you cannot even stop drinking. It will kill you. When you try to stop drinking on your own, that you need medication, you need medical care to stop drinking alcohol. So, all right, I'm gonna stop it there for today, because this one's heading up to half an hour. Let me know if you like this video below. Let me know what if you have any questions about it, or what your comments are. My aim with all of these videos is never to offend anyone. So if people are going to the AA, I have no intention of trying to offend you. But offense always comes from, I don't know you, so I can only really offend the people that I know. Do you understand? Offense always comes from the receiving rather than the giving. So it's just take it for what it is. I'm exploring this myself. I'm trying to help people. In my own business is a business of trying to help people not to stop drinking alcohol, but to stay stopped and to improve their lives afterwards. That's what we do. We're a coaching business that helps people to move away from the idea that they need alcohol in their lives, whether they move away from the idea that they are an alcoholic or that there's anything wrong with them. And like I said, most of the people that I deal with are in this phase here. They're not down the end here. I can't treat anyone that's down here because they need something that I can't give them. So anyway, take good care of yourself. I will speak to you in the next video. Onwards and upwards. All right, bye now.